Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show is to provide you information the bought-off, lamestream, fake media will not touch. You can join us on our radio show. It's free every Sunday. It's live, 2 to 5 Eastern. On Sundays, go to davejanda.com, go to the upper right-hand corner, hit the Listen Live button, and great guests, great analysis. You're welcome to join us every Sunday, 2 to 5. We're also available on this YouTube channel 24/7, and we're also available on davejanda.com. We have a tremendous amount of free information we upload on a regular basis. We also have the subscription side, 30 cents a day, $9 a month. You can sign up for a month and get rid of it. Not sure why you would, because the information we provide you'll not get from the bought-off, lamestream, fake media. Today, I want to focus on the deep state's failed coup and how it relates to the border. Couple things. The coup. It's now coming more out in the open. Even the most brain-dead of zealots right out that window in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, Michigan, are starting to figure out that, well, you know what? Something wasn't right. And what's finally woke a lot of people up was McCabe, who did his little deal on 60 Minutes. And I'm not even sure that the guy interviewing him, Scott Pelley, even figured out that what McCabe was talking about was sedition, about the removal of a duly elected president of the United States, that president being Donald J. Trump. But let's go back in time and let's do a little timeline. You know, the question is, when did this coup attempt start? You're going to find this surprising. But I believe the coup attempt started in January of 2009. What? I mean, Donald Trump didn't even declare for the presidency until 2015 that he was going to run. And Barack Obama in 2009 just became president. Precisely. You see, I believe that it was soon after Barack Obama was inaugurated that the wheels were set in motion to undermine any president who ever came after Obama who was not owned and operated by the deep state. Why do I say that? Because I believe as early as 2009, a platform was instituted by Obama and the people around Obama called the Hammer. The Hammer was an illegal surveillance system that monitored phone calls, emails, internet activity, financial transactions of millions of individuals, including yourself and me. But in particular, that system could be turned on to target individuals. That system could be turned on to plant information. On our Insider Insight show, just this past week, on the subscription side of davejanda.com, we had two whistleblowers come forward who believed, and one of the whistleblowers was a signal intelligence officer under Ronald Reagan in the NSA. They believed they were targeted because of their opposition to Obama, and that the Obama administration utilized the Hammer platform to try to plant information on their computer systems. You see, this just didn't focus on Donald Trump. Oh, he became the focus over time. But they were surveilling a lot of people on their landscape who weren't signing in to the deep state's platform and their puppet du jour, Obama. Obama, John Brennan, who became his director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and James Clapper, who became his director of national intelligence, hired an individual by the name of Dennis Montgomery to create this platform. And after a period of time, Montgomery realized, wait a minute, what I'm doing here, this is a violation of people's Fourth Amendment rights. This is highly illegal. He hired an attorney, Larry Klayman. They went to the FBI. Comey was the director at the time. And Dennis Montgomery brought the 47 hard drives, along with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of documents on these hard drives with him, and was deposed under oath, and it's my understanding under video, at the FBI, of which Comey became aware of. And this was all documented. But then Dennis Montgomery got cold feet. And he started to talk outside of the FBI deposition room. And Obama and Brennan and Clapper got really nervous. And at this point, Donald Trump had risen to the point where he was now declaring for the presidency. The problem is they couldn't get any good information on Trump and the people around him with any kind of criminal activities that could be used to take him out. And they also, with Montgomery speaking, they had to cover themselves. Because what if more people started to speak about this surveillance program? They had to have something in their back pocket that they could say that they were surveilling people. Because, well, they were concerned about nefarious activity that these people were involved with foreign governments, in particular Russia. Enter the fake Russian dossier. So the DNC and the Clinton campaign, and I believe money funneled through the Obama administration, hired this guy, Christopher Steele, with Fusion GPS, with the assistance of, I believe, some people in Obama's own administration. Bruce Orr, number 4 at the Department of Justice, just to name a name. Nellie Orr, his wife. To assist in the creation of this fake Russian dossier to be utilized to, if you will, to cover for what they had been doing with the hammer illegally. Are you aware, and this was not reported in the bought off lamestream fake media, but this is from Zero Hedge. Christopher Steele admits, this is recently, Christopher Steele admits he was hired to help Hillary challenge the 2016 election. What? Former UK spy Christopher Steele admitted in a London court that he was hired to help Hillary Clinton contest the results of the 2016 election in case Trump won. And in fact, the only news source that locked onto this was not the Washington Post or the New York Times, but the Washington Times. Steele assembled an anti-Trump dossier of opposition research for investigative firm Fusion GPS, which was in turn hired by DNC law firm Perkins Coie, and the document used a senior Russian foreign ministry figure and a foreign top-level intelligence officer still active in the Kremlin. In other words, Hillary Clinton, through Steele and other intermediaries, was working with Russians against Donald Trump. That from Zero Hedge. So the fake Russian dossier was created to try to overturn the election in case Hillary lost, but it was also there to cover the tracks of Obama and Brennan and Clapper and the other Obama officials that were involved in this illegal hammer activity. Well, it started to fall apart because, you see, Bruce Orr went to the FBI. Remember, he was 4th in line in the Justice Department, said, just so you know, this dossier has been paid for by the DNC and the Clinton campaign, and it's based on a guy by the name of Steele who's been hired. He's really, he's been hired to. He hates Trump, and this is bogus. How do we know Bruce Orr actually said that? Because It's testimony that he testified behind closed doors to Congress that has been leaked. But in spite of the FBI having this information, they took that information along with the Justice Department and brought it to the FISA courts and had FISA warrants issued on the Trump campaign. This is in October 2016, in spite of knowing it was bogus. That's a criminal act. Now, the question is, what were the FISA judges doing? I mean, did a FISA judge ask, hey, where'd you get this? Who paid for this? Where did this come from? Well, reportedly, the FISA judges were never told it was paid for by the DNC, the Clinton campaign, or for that matter, by Obama's own FBI, it appears, was also funneling money to fund this bogus information. That's in October 2016. Then something happened that stunned the puppets of the deep state, the Clintons and the Obamas and the Comeys and Donald Trump won. Now they got a big problem. And after Obama won and his meeting with Donald Trump, it's my understanding that Obama told Trump about not hiring one particular person. Who was that person? General Mike Flynn. Why? Because General Flynn knew where all the bodies were buried. And they feared him. And that is why they needed to get rid of him. But Donald Trump didn't listen to Obama. He hired General Flynn. And as an insurance policy, what Obama did is he took information from that fake Russian dossier. And you might say, well, he didn't really realize that this was a problem. Well, remember Lisa Page's testimony behind the curtain that was recently leaked. Quote, what did she say? Quote, in her text to Strzok, quote, the White House wants to direct this, end quote. And reports that in the presidential daily briefings, the PDBs, President Obama was kept apprised of this operation, this fake Russian hack narrative, on a regular basis. In addition, right before the inauguration, Barack Obama and his administration officials were distributing information that they knew was fraudulent in this fake Russian dossier, and they were distributing it to certain members of the Senate. Why? As an insurance policy to help undermine Trump, to help take him out. And then their first act after President Trump became president was to get rid of General Flynn. Because he knew where all the bodies were buried. Because General Flynn is the one who stood up when he was director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and outed the criminality that was occurring in the Obama administration, which is why Obama fired him. And which is why Obama targeted General Flynn to be the first person to go down, because they could not have General Flynn in a position to pass on information to the president that was deleterious to the deep state. Which is why they did everything in their power to bring in McMaster, card-carrying member of the Council on Foreign Relations, a deep state operation, why they needed McMaster in that position rather than General Flynn. But then something happened. On March 19th, 2017, Sunday, March 19th, 2017, General Tom McInerney, a friend of ours, who's a regular on our show, brought information from another friend of ours, another regular on our show at the time, Admiral Ace Lyons, who recently passed away, brought information on air live about the hammer. We know the deep state became concerned about that interview because that same night, in emails that were and text messages that were lost, some of the 19,000 that have now been found by the Inspector General Michael Horowitz of the Department of Justice, Strzok and Page were speaking about that interview that we did with General McInerney, outing the hammer. and they started to panic. That now, as opposed to internet rumor about the hammer, now this is the first time it had been presented on a radio show or television show through Wham Talk 1600, that the hammer existed, that the hammer was used to undermine millions of individuals, and particularly used to target President Trump. Then in May of 2017, Comey was fired, Mueller appointed, McCabe made the acting director of the FBI. And what happened? That's when the meetings occurred about the removal of President Trump on the 25th Amendment. And that is what McCabe presented on that 60 Minutes interview. Sedition. Everyone that was at those meetings, and he said there were several meetings. Let's find out who those people were. Because everybody involved in those meetings was being involved in the removal of a duly elected president of the United States. Look, their coup was failing. The hammer information, they couldn't get enough information to undermine Trump. So they created this fake Russian dossier. Well, that didn't pan out. That whole narrative was falling apart, melting. The Mueller investigation was leading to 26 people, high-level officials in the Department of Justice and FBI, to either be fired, resigned, to be under investigation, to be reassigned. And what they got a couple people on process crimes for not crimes that were committed in collusion with Russia, but in lying to Congress and lying to the FBI, even though it's okay for Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey to be lying in front of Congress. They get a pass, but, well, let's hammer Roger Stone with the El Chapo SWAT team to come in at 6 o'clock in the morning to take him out. And Manafort and Papadopoulos, and their coup was falling apart. And then McCabe realized, wait a minute, we're all getting cut off from the deep state. They're hanging us out. So that is why he went on 60 Minutes. He went on 60 Minutes because he knows there's been a grand jury convened to indict him. He knows an indictment is near for him. And he thought if he could get out in front, he panicked. If he could get out in front of this and say, well, I was just acting like a patriotic American because I really felt that this guy Donald Trump was in collusion with the Russians and all. But instead, he made a mistake that the interviewer, I don't think, even caught. That McCabe and the people around him were involved in sedition, in trying to institute their Hail Mary pass of the 25th Amendment, which says that if the president is incapacitated, they could be removed. Well, wait a minute. If they really thought that there was Russian collusion, and remember, there's a text between Strzok and Page that says in May of 2017, quote, there's no there as it relates to the Russian collusion issue. In other words, they knew it was falling apart. They knew the Russian hoax was it wasn't going to stand the test of time. So they needed to try to do something as the Hail Mary of their coup. Let's get him to say that he's incompetent. Let's get enough people in his cabinet and the vice president to go along with it. If they really thought there was Russian collusion, then go through the process the Constitution has set up, the impeachment process, not a 25th Amendment deal. And that just shows how panicked and desperate they were. And they're all desperate. And they're all panicked because the coup has failed. And it is falling apart in their hands, and they're left to hold it. And it's only going to get worse from here for them. There was a deep state coup, and it has failed. Bottom line. I want to touch on the border issue because as the deep state coup fails, they're going to try to create chaos in our country. And one way they can create chaos is by swarming the border with illegals. The president had a huge victory on the funding of the border wall. He found a way to get $9.7 billion, close to $10 billion, to fund the wall. He instituted the national emergency. Good. But I want to connect the dots here as it relates to that border bill. The deep state, as part of their coup attempt, put a number of poison pills in the border bill so that the border would remain a sieve to drug dealers, human traffickers, and to illegals trying to get in this country. Some of those illegals being criminals such as the MS-13 dudes. It's the final part of their way to try to undermine President Trump in our country. Poison pills were inserted by members of Congress. We need to find out who. And in particular, who put in Section 224 that essentially enables traffickers to bring kids into this country and act like they're visas, essentially, so that any illegal that's currently in the United States in Section 224 can say they're sponsoring a child, an unaccompanied minor coming across the border, and that illegal that's already in our country cannot be deported. In other words, is allowed essentially amnesty. That wasn't an accident. It was there. It was put there. And we need to find out who put it there. It was people in Congress that are deep state players. But it was overwhelmingly passed by the House and by the Senate. Republicans voted for it. Again, remember, the deep state are not just Dems. They're Republicans as well. That's why I called it the Republican Party. Now, President Trump did three things. He signed the bill. I've gotten a lot of heat talking about, continuing resolution would have been better, vetoing the bill. Here's why I say that. He did right by doing the national emergency. He signed a presidential signing statement afterwards that focused on a number of the poison pills and said, I'm not going along with these. Now look, when I present information to you, in particular on the border issue, it's important for you to know that I consult with a large number of people before I produce these videos. On the border issue, I spoke with a phenomenal litigator, 10 years in the Justice Department, ran the Western District appeals process and the Northern District Texas appeals process for the Justice Department, Sidney Powell. You see her on Lou Dobbs' show a lot. She's phenomenal. One of the most brilliant attorneys in our country. Spoke with Helen Chapman, one of the most brilliant litigators. She's one of the people who helped take down Bernie Madoff. Spoke to former congressmen that were, one congressman, in fact, who was the head of the policy committee for the House, former. INS officials, immigration judges. Mike Cutler, who's a regular on our show, 30 years in the INS. Spoke with all these people. And they said that this Section 224 is a problem and was really a deep state landmine. So, because it was signed, many people say, well, the bill was signed, but the national emergency was put in place by the president. Good. And that negates the bill. No, it doesn't. None of these people, none of these legal experts, none of these congressional folks, none of these immigration judges that we have the opinions of stated that. They state that the national emergency does not affect the bill. Well, then the signing statement does. Look, the signing statement is not an executive order, okay? It's not. It was put into place by Ronald Reagan. Remember, the president doesn't have the line item veto. Reagan tried for that, didn't get it. So instead, after a bill was signed and he didn't like certain sections, his staff would say, these sections are bad, Mr. President, and he signed a signing statement, which is exactly what President Trump did after the border bill. Here's the problem. That is not an executive order. It is not. It is a signing statement. It carries no legal weight. The bill still holds. So for all those folks that say the signing statement is an executive order, it is not. For all those folks that say the signing statement trumps the bill, it does not. It has no legal standing. What does? An executive order does. All right. Well, did the president sign an executive order on Section 224 about the trafficking? He did sign the signing statement, but 224 is not in that. The last executive order that was signed by President Trump was February 14th, 2019, and it had to do with artificial intelligence. Since the border bill was passed, there has not been an executive order. Now, on this past Sunday show, we had Sidney Powell, brilliant attorney, top in the appeals process, has tried hundreds of appeals cases in federal court. Here's something Sidney wrote for the Daily Caller that she spoke about on our radio interview on Operation Freedom. And it involves the president signing an executive order blocking, you ready for this? All immigration. This is how that bill that had landmines put in it in Congress by the deep state can be blocked. Here's what Sidney writes, and she confirmed this in our interview on Sunday. In any event, President Trump has the authority to stop the entry of all aliens into the United States. Title 8, Section Code 1182F gives the president the power to suspend the entry of all aliens whenever he finds their entry would, quote, be detrimental to the interests of the United States. Quote, it's just that simple. The Supreme Court recently affirmed this power of the president in Trump versus Hawaii. Recent decision. The court was very clear, quote, the sole prerequisite set forth in 8 U.S.C. 1182F as in Frank is that the president finds that the entry of the covered aliens would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. The court specifically noted the, quote, broad statutory text and deference traditionally accorded to the president in this sphere, end quote. The president can suspend the entry of all aliens according to a recent decision by the Supreme Court. While the plain language of the statute is so clear that the president need not even give reasons, but there are countless reasons to stop all immigration right now. What Sidney recommends is that all of us, and I already did this, call the White House. Tell them we support the president, but this illegal immigration must stop, and the best way to do that is an executive order that stops all immigration for a period of time. Let the president determine. The president will determine that. But Title 8, tell them, Title 8, this is what I told them. According to Title 8, United States Code 1182F, the president can suspend the entry of all aliens, and I'd like the president. I hope the president will do that through an executive order, because this will negate what the landmines that were put in by the deep state players in Congress in that immigration bill. And we already know from a recent decision from the Supreme Court, Trump versus Hawaii, he has the power to do that. That's what I told them. They were actually very receptive. Well, thank you very much. We'll pass this on. I hope he gets it. Hopefully Jared or Ivanka won't block it, or Mulvaney. But if enough of us do this, it'll get through. It will get through. The bottom line, the deep state coup has failed, but that doesn't mean they haven't tried to put some landmines around to create chaos, to harm our country, and to harm the president. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. I'd like to thank you for networking this information. I hope you'll join us at davejanda.com. Look, we have our Operation Freedom radio show where we had the interview this past week with Sidney Powell. Go to davejanda.com, Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern. Hit the listen button. It's free. We have a tremendous amount of free information on davejanda.com, but we also have the subscription service. Look, if it was not for our subscribers, a year ago, we would have had to pack up our radio show because of the costs of doing the radio show, the production costs, and the cost for our website. IT support is expensive. Hosting a site is expensive. We were at a crossroads, and our subscribers stepped up, 30 cents a day, $9 a month. And because of that, we could continue our YouTube channel, we could continue our radio show, and we could continue DaveJanda.com, where we upload information to the free side, but also the subscription side, where we have extra shows. Our Insider Insight show of an interview where we just did with the whistleblowers, our WTF show where I present a show every week on information from behind the curtain I'm getting from my sources I've developed over 30 years, our Department of Advanced Research show by Nick Ruiz that focuses on IT issues. We have our contributing editor section, our special segment section. We have the healthcare policy briefing section, all for 30 cents a day. I hope you'll join us and support our efforts on our Operation Freedom platform here at YouTube, and also with our radio show, and also with our website. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail.